going right now. There we
Okay,
go.
excellent. Okay, so now that we've got that going, has everyone had a chance to read the minutes of our previous meeting?
I spent so much time highlighting them and talking to my family about them that
Okay.
they're
So-
all just bright yellow pages now.
All
They're
right, so
fascinating.
is it okay with everybody if we accept them by acclamation?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so acclaimed. Okay, now, okay, so we're gonna do committee reports, and since we're shut down by COVID, this should go rather quickly. Does the treasurer, Ron Sampson, have anything to report?
No, we just resolved a few issues with the bank, and everything seems to be on track, hopefully.
All right, thank you, brother.
Hold
Ron.
on. So Ron, I can tell Club Express to resubmit?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
The chair recognizes Brewster.
Oh, being all formal.
All right, okay.
I'm done.
Well, it's my last meeting as president, so I want to go out with a bang. All right, and we're doing Bob's Rules of Orders instead of Robert's Rules of Order tonight, because I'm very interested in getting to our presentation on eyepieces, Barlows, and filters, which are my three favorite things, even more so than telescopes. As you all know, I'm an eyepiece junkie. Okay, so next we have anything from either Merrimack College Observatory or Salem State Observatory.
Nope.
That would be a nope on both. And star parties, I'm also assuming is a nope.
Nope.
Okay. Are there any other committees that I might have uncommittedly forgot? Or is that all of our committees? You see, that's one thing about, Zoom meetings during a pandemic. The business meeting tends to go very quickly because nothing's happening. All right, so that's all good? Okay. Are we ready to entertain? Because I have an agenda item for new business. Does anyone else want to entertain anything about new business before we get to my bombshell?
Are you talking about the upcoming election or some other bombshell?
No, the new business about the star naming companies.
Ah, okay. Well, election is usually old business or new business?
That can be new business,
Okay.
I guess, because it's not old.
Well, it is and it isn't, yeah.
Okay. Well, okay. So the business is that, as you know, online, I received over the past month a couple of emails from people who said that they bought a star either for themselves or for a member of their family, and that they wanted somebody from our club to show them their star. And this is kind of a heated issue, and it's a, sort of a controversial issue. But, I was in the observatory one night, some years ago with Bill Drown, where a family basically demanded, that we show them their star. And when we put the coordinates in and there were 5 stars on the field, we told them it's one of them, but with the information you gave us, we can't narrow it down. And then they said, well, you're a pretty bleeping bad astronomer if you can't tell me which star is mine, and I want to talk to your supervisor. And since then, I found out that the main star naming company not only threatens astronomers and their universities who speak the truth about them, but they also hypocritically, I think, try to sue the competing star naming companies who are, threatening their profit margins. So I thought that it would be a good idea if going forward, since I'm not going to be president anymore and Mike's not going to be vice president anymore after tonight's meeting, and other people are going to be, fielding these emails, if we had sort of, maybe not a policy, but just sort of like an unwritten policy or an understanding of how we're going to handle these kinds of requests in the future. What I basically did is I said, I'm really very sorry to tell you this, but, astronomers in observatories and universities and astronomy clubs don't really recognize these star naming companies because they have threatened our colleagues with legal action. And by the way, there's only one agency that has the authority to name objects in space, and that's the International Astronomical Union, and they never name stars after people. And then I went on to say, you would be more than welcome to join us at any of our outreach events if we ever have one. And I'll even send you a Zoom link so that you can be a guest at our next meeting. But no, I'm not gonna, show anybody, a star they brought from the International Star Registry. So, I guess, incoming president and vice president, ultimately it's going to be, your call as to how you guys want to handle that. But, I've made my, feelings known, and I will, stand on that. And I don't know, do we want to have an official policy on this, or just do we want to have an unwritten policy and, sort of deal with it as they come up? Because for many years, we never got any, requests about this. And now all of a sudden it seems to be an in vogue thing again for whatever reason. Any discussion? And Bill, I'd also be interested in, your take on this as, somebody who's active in the astronomy community too.
I think for NSAAC, Brian, just to start it off, I think that somewhere in the continuum between telling the people that they're friggin' idiots or saying yes, yes, and lying about where their star is, I think there's a way to let them down a little easier.
Because I wouldn't be interested in like showing them Alberio and telling them that they got a 2-for-1 bargain, or anything like that.
Right, right. But I think if we had something gentle to let them down easy,
All
it
right.
might avoid some of the
All right.
rancor.
So maybe one of our new incoming board who's kinder and gentler and maybe more tactful and, maybe, more, empathetic than I am, could come up with something like that. And if you want my, advice, everybody knows how to get a hold of me. Just shoot me an email or a call, and I'll, tell you what I think for whatever it's worth.
Brian,
So as
I-
public
it's hard
outreach
to-
person, I do kind of get a little of that, but my vibe, I would go the PT Barnum route and say, oh, well, you didn't pay the right people, pay me $100 and I'll show you your star.
Well,
Hey, their
you know-
fundraising problems are solved. Come on,
it's-
let's make opportunity here.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting because like what we were talking about before is that these people are not interested in joining the club, and they're not interested in even making a donation to the club. They're interested in a one and done interaction because, if they were knowledgeable about the hobby of astronomy, they would have known ahead of time that the star naming clubs are, unethical because it's been in Sky and Telescope, it's been in astronomy, it's been on cloudy nights, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know.
So Brian, how many of these requests are you
Two over
receiving?
the past month, but you never know. You never know, Julian. That's the thing. You never know. It might be a year before we get another one. We might get 2 of them next week. But, I think it's better to be prepared than not prepared. Any discussion? All right, well, this is something that we could come back to later if we have to. That's really the only new business item that I had on the agenda. So I guess at this time, if nobody else has any new business or old business, we could, get on with the election, install the new vice president and the new president and the new board members, and then, leave me on so I can introduce, Bill as our presenter for tonight, and then we'll go from there. There
Muted,
is
Michael.
one other thing. I would like to recognize Mike for his tireless role as president for many years and as vice president during the past year. I kind of look at myself as sort of a, transitional president because Mike was president for many years. I did it this time, the last time I did it, it was 2 years. This time it's only 1 year. And hopefully, the incoming administration will also, have many, successful and wonderful years, as president, vice president, and on the board. But Mike is the one, who took our club from, the verge of oblivion and, restored it to its, previous greatness, with really, really good, education, entertainment, and getting us to, a community center that we could have our meetings, that had a pretty good, observing site less than a quarter of a mile drive away from it. And I want us to all recognize, Mike for this, and to please, join me in, giving him a big round of applause. And that's it for me. So let's do the election and let's get the new people in, and then let's start with our eyepiece stuff, which is really what I want.
You're muted, Michael.
Michael, you're on mute.
I don't think he knows.
Mike,
Michael,
you're muted.
Can't hear you.
Can't hear you.
Wave.
I kind of like him this way, actually.
He's doing it on purpose.
Hang on.
Yeah, he's gonna mime the whole election thing.
There we go. Now we can.
You're supposed to be able to get off mute by hitting your space bar, but I find that that's an intermittent quality
Well,
in this
did you at least hear the tribute?
Yes, I could hear fine. I
Oh,
was just, my mic was muted so that if my phone rang or something, which it already did once, it wouldn't crack up the meeting. So anyway, thank you, Brian. Thank you for serving as president. And this is a very transitional year. And we are sort of skidding in for a landing sideways in a cloud of smoke and turning it over to Julian and Tim. We're going to have the first election of the president, vice president, and board members. There are no people running against any of the candidates, although we have a full slate. So I'm going to move that we select the slate of candidates for the board by acclamation.
I
Second
second the
motion.
motion.
third.
Okay. Do we agree to accept the slate of candidates as elected, the slate that was distributed on the email and a number of times by Brewster?
Yes.
Everyone?
Yes.
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 That sounds like acclamation to me.
Okay. All right.
Okay, done. All right, now we have 3 candidates for 2 member-at-large positions. We're going to have a poll. I want you to vote for your favorite member-at-large person, and please vote for yourself by all means. And whoever comes in position number 1 and number 2, there are new members at large. All right, so let me get the poll out to you and hope that it works.
Oh, while you're doing that, okay. Well, okay, hang on. All right.
Oh, there you go. That's cool.
Okay, here we go. All right.
For one, vote for one.
Oh, 1? Oh, okay. All right.
Is everybody here from there? I know Rowena's here and Kevin. Did Salvatore come?
Sal isn't here, but he's still an active candidate, so he's
Yeah,
there.
he did confirm that he wanted to run. He indicated he might not make it. But I'm noticing that you can only click on 1 and not 2
Yeah.
things.
Is that, no, I don't want you to click on 2. I want you to vote for your favorite, and the top 2
I got you.
positions will win.
Okay, and then we'll do the other. I got you.
And whoever gets 30 votes gets it, and whoever gets the 1 other vote gets it, and that's it.
Okay. Kind of the reverse double Dutch auction with a, I don't know. something.
Double secret, yeah.
Yeah.
Probationary election.
Probably should have had speeches by the candidates, right? I mean,
No, I want to get to the eyepiece talk.
I know, but come on, you got to be fair about this.
If they give us,
Next year,
I'm
next
voting
year.
against them.
Okay, 3 people still haven't voted, so please vote.
And for everybody that is being elected or will win the election, whatever, send me the email address that you want to get official NSAAC emails at, because I need to update, like, so if you email president@NSAAC, it'll go to you, Julian, for example. So,
Okay.
and if you have a different email address that you want for that, so just I mean, I have your club, the Club Express emails, but just confirm with me how you'd like to get your email. I can always change it later, but if I can get it right the first time, that would be great.
Thanks, Bruce.
Brian, I have a question for you about the star naming thing. You said that they told you you were a whatever lousy astronomer, and they wanted to talk to your supervisor. Why did they want to talk to Rhonda?
Well,
Oh,
actually,
Mike, you got it confused. That's his handle.
Rhonda and I are celebrating our 6th anniversary on Sunday, and this was actually before I met Rhonda.
Oh, okay. They probably just wanted to introduce you then.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
Brian, do you know what she's bought you for your anniversary gift?
Yes, I'm a gearhead, so she got me a few everyday carry, tchotchkes, which I'll very much enjoy.
Well, she
Okay,
told me
I got-
that she's named a star after you.
She knows better than that, because I got to tell you, seriously, if somebody named a star after me, I don't know how I would be able to handle it without puking. So that would be a tough one.
All right, I have 14 votes, which is 87% voting turnout, which is pretty good.
That's
I'm going to end the poll now,
all right.
since it hasn't moved for a while, and we will do the counting. Oh, gee, what do you know? Rowena came in first with
Yay!
79% of the
Yay!
vote. Kevin Roy came in second with 21% of the vote,
Okay.
and Salvatore
Rowena.
Battinelli came in third.
Okay. Congratulations. And I have a presentation that I would make to Julian as soon as I close out of this. Julian, this is the ceremonial gavel that was given to thee by Mike, and now I give it to you.
Well, you'll have to lean over a little bit more. All right, I think I can get it. Here we go. Oh,
Did you reach
yep.
it? Okay, good.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Very impressive.
So Julian now has the gavel.
Did you wipe it down first before you passed it to me?
Yes. Yeah.
Excellent.
And Julian, with your permission, if we have no other business, I would like to ask Mr. President if I may have the honor of introducing tonight's guest and speaker.
All right. Before you do that, though, you've got to let me bang the gavel to end the business meeting.
All right. Yes. The meeting adjourned. Yes. Okay. All right.
you.
So we are now in the education and entertainment part of tonight's meeting. Bill and I have corresponded with each other for a long time on cloudynights.com, particularly on the eyepiece forum. And I've learned a ton about eyepieces, Barlows, and filters from Bill. And also, I've become a little bit more confident in the advice that I give the other newbies about what might be, good eyepieces or Barlows or filters for their particular situation and for their scopes based on a lot of what I've, learned from Bill over the years. Bill in addition to eyepieces, he's got some really nice telescopes. He got, an Orion Daub from Company 7, remember that? And then, of course, we've got the 4-inch APO. And I was with you, when you went through the decision-making process about which one to buy and what mounting to put it on and to get it from that. And so, I've considered, Bill to be a good, online friend for many, many years. Bill is also, I'm sure that you all know because I've been plugging it for months now, the author of one of my favorite books, Choosing and Using Astronomical Eyepieces. And this guy is a wealth of information. And in addition to asking everybody to have some of their, favorite eyepieces with them tonight, we're gonna entertain some questions too. So Bill is, going to be giving us some, introductory comments, a little bit of, lay the groundwork. And then we're going to, after that, have what I hope will be an inspiring, Q&A session because, Bill is to eyepieces as Albert Einstein is to relativity. So this is going to be a real treat. And Bill, take it away. It's all yours.
Well, thank you for inviting me here. So I was going to begin the discussion with what's new out there for eyepieces. And actually, I don't really consider that there's a lot out there that's new. It seems like for the past 5 years or so, the industry's kind of like been stagnant more or less in the eyepiece realm, and I think that's really just because they've done about as much as they can do with glass as possible. Although there is the next leap where they could go to some better coating technologies, and they could go to variable gradient lenses and full spherics in the eyepieces like they do in camera lenses. But those are too costly technologies, and the astronomy market seems to likes to stay lean most of the time, so I don't know if we'll ever get to them. But anyway, so with some of the new stuff, I mean, one of the newest things out there right now is the APM ultra flat field eyepieces, UFFs they're called. So they've been getting some press because they have long eye relief, and the 24 millimeter version of that is pretty much a replacement for the 24 panoptic.
Wow.
It's actually got a little bit better off axis than the panoptic does, and it's got enough eye relief so that eyeglass wearers have absolutely no issue using it. So I think it comes in at like 250 or something like that, or 200. No, 200. Yeah. So it competes with it on price much better as well. So I don't know if you all know Don Pensack from the Eyepiece Forum as well. He's an avid DSO observer, and he runs he's got like an eyepiece spreadsheet on all the different brands out there. But he's recently just switched out from the 24 pan to the 24 APM UFF. Now it's a little bigger than the pan, and it's a little heavier than the pan. It's got nine elements in it. But other than that, everybody that goes to it seems to really like it. They have other models in the focal lengths, but those are coming out to be not so good. And either they have some off-axis issues or some stray light issues. So the two that seem to be the gems of the line are the 24 and then the 2-inch 30 millimeter, which is also a 70-degree eyepiece. Now these are made by Cumming United Optics, and they were actually designed though by an American, Mark Ackerman, who does a lot of designs for Celestron and some of their telescopes. Like there's one of the imaging scopes. It's called an Ackerman Row imaging scope. So he's the designer of that. Let's see now, as far as the 30 APM, it's got a 38 millimeter field stop, which is extremely large for a 30 millimeter. So it's got a fairly low distortion field of view. And I think somebody asked a question, I believe, on the standard questions about what's a replacement for a 27 pan. So the 30 APM would be an excellent replacement for that. With the much larger stop at 38 millimeters opposed to the 27 pan, which has only got a 30.5 millimeter. And then of course the 38 pan's got a 38 millimeter. So really the 30 APM is really a better deal than both of the pans, and it's got a lot of good press, and again, excellent eye relief. Let's see. Then there are these little inexpensive, they're called Starbase orthos and Kellners, and they're marketed with a brand new beginner scope from Takahashi, which is an 80 millimeter scope, achromat, long focal length achromat. So they made Takahashi didn't make the eyepieces, another company made it, but they contracted to them. Build quality is quite excellent. They're like $40 to $50, and they kind of remind you of the old eyepieces from the 70s and 80s. Good heavy metal builds with chrome barrels, and they come in 25 and 20 millimeter for the Kellners, and then They call them orthos in 20, 18, 14, 9, and 6 millimeters, but they're actually plosses. They're orthoscopic plosses. So their field of view has very little rectilinear distortion on the off axis, so that everything looks, all the shapes and angles come across good, which is what orthoscopic means. So they're not an ABBE, but a plosser. Now, the odd thing about these two, since they're for beginner scopes, I guess it's not an odd thing, but they're actually single coated. So they're not multi-coated. Some people like that. I particularly like that. I like single coated eyepieces better for planetary and also for double stars. But these, because they're plosser designs, being that they're two symmetrical elements, they get a lot of more tendency for reflections out of the plosser design. So you will see some light artifacts. There's some light ghosting or some stray light when it's something bright's just outside the axis or outside the field stop. And on planetary realm, we have the Takahashi TOEs, which are very expensive, about $320 each, very short focal lengths, 2.5, 3.3, and 4.0. I tested these against my ZAOs and against the one wide field eyepiece that I feel is worthy of being at the low tier in planetary, which is the Teleview Delight. They outperformed the Delights by a notable nuance margin for planetary. You know, planetary observers, we like every little piece of photon that we can get that shows something a little better. So, for instance, like when looking at Jupiter with the Delights, some of the festoons that were coming off the main belts were rather ethereal and difficult to see in the Delight, and they were very, very affirmatively there through the Takahashi TOE. The Vixen HR was another branding that came out for a little while, and it's since been discontinued. It's similar, very short focal lengths, similar, very excellent. So these multi-element eyepieces, the TOEs, I think that's 6 or 7 elements, and they have good eye relief, still the small field of views at about 50 degrees, or 42 to 50, just depending. And they get a lot closer to the classic planetaries like a ZAO or an XO or some of those high premium things, the old Pentax SMC orthos. Those very premium and discontinued ones still beat out anything else that's been made. And the reason is because they just got better contrast because they have less glass elements in the train. So it's not going to make worlds of differences, but you know, it's going to show you things that possibly you'll will be more difficult to see or won't see sometimes. So for me, like for instance, one year I was trying my darndest with my 4-inch Takahashi APO to try to see the orographic clouds that form over Olympus Mons and Mars once in a while. So they become visible, but they're very small. It's a very, very tiny feature on what's always a tiny planet when you're not at opposition. And you know, I went through my conventional eyepieces looking for something there, nothing there. I put in even my ZAOs, I put those in and EXO, and they didn't show it. And then I finally went down to a single element sphere eyepiece, so a ball eyepiece that I custom made, and which has phenomenal contrast, but the off axis is just horrible. Anything outside of like 15 degrees from center on the apparent field of view is just a mess. But that very on axis is just such high contrast, and there it was. You could see them plain as day on the planet. So it's the same thing with the classic ABB orthos when you go to these more extreme things like the TOEs, the Takahashi TOEs, and the HRs, Vixen HRs, which have more elements. So they get you close there, not quite there, but they get you a lot better than any other eyepiece is going to get you with more complex designs. Now, Meade has just come out with something called a PWA, which is an 82-degree eyepiece. They're running in the $200 to $260 range. And what they are is they're basically a reissue of the old William Optics UWANs. Remember
Oh,
those?
you
Those are-
want,
Yeah, the same focal lengths, same sizes, same kind of look to them and stuff, which means that they're probably going to perform pretty good because the UWANs actually perform fairly well. And I remember an old review that Tom Tussick did on those, and between on the 16 of that and the 16 Nagler, he couldn't find any difference on the two. So that looks promising, given that they have a relatively good price range on that. And then finally, they came out a little while ago, the APM XWAs, which are 100-degree eyepieces. Marcus in Germany did some custom things, my understanding, with those, with the OEM that makes them, with some better coatings on it, or perhaps tune coatings. But basically, everybody that's using them now seems to put them right on par with the Ethos. So, so that's pretty good. I mean, they're saying they're a good notch better than the Explorer Scientifics, and they're more like just right on par with the Ethos. And some people are ditching their Ethos now for those because they're inexpensive for 100-degree at $300 to $330 for the range. And they come in 20 millimeter, 13, 9, 7, and 4.8. So if anybody's interested in trying to get into the 100-degree market, that's got a great price point. And that's about where we're at, I think, with the new stuff for eyepieces. Anybody have any questions? Yeah.
okay. The first line of questioning that I wanted to go over deals with premium zoom eyepieces. And for years now, the premium zoom eyepiece on the market has been the Leica zoom, which was designed to be used in their spotting scopes, but is amazing for a number of astronomical telescopes. It's a 2-inch eyepiece format that goes from 9 to 18 millimeters, as I think pretty much all of us know. And what's unique about the Leica zoom is that you get a wide field of view and a good eye relief that's good enough to use with eyeglasses throughout the entire 9 to 18 millimeter field, to the point where a number of astronomers were considering selling, pretty much all or most of the eyepieces that they had and replacing it with a Leica zoom, a Barlow that could be used with the Leica zoom to take it down from 9 millimeters to about 4.5 millimeters, and then one, 2-inch, really good, finder, wide field type eyepiece, for, lowest power, widest field. Now, so I guess the question that I always had is, would it be worthwhile to do this when my primary instrument is an 8-inch f6 Daub with, a custom, Daub base and, a refigured mirror and a moonlight focuser? And if so, what would be the best Barlow to use with the Leica zoom in order to try to do something like that?
Now, are you talking about the AC, the aspheric model?
Yeah.
Okay, and I thought that was a 1.25 inch also.
No, that's a 2-incher, and I could be wrong, but fortunately I have the book right in front of me. And yes, the book does say that it's a unique zoom eyepiece, and yeah, it's a 2-incher. The book.
Yeah. Okay.
So like, Bill, what would be like? Would it be like a Power Mate, or
in
the Barlow, or what do you think?
In the and that's got that goes out something bigger than 82 degrees, doesn't it?
I'm looking for the specs right now. Hang on. but while I'm looking for the specs for that, APM, which we've been talking about, just released their own super premium zoom, and this one is a 1.25 inch format, and it goes from 7 to 14 millimeters. And according to the thread on cloudynights.com right now, it's supposed to be 70-degree apparent field of view for the entire range.
Yeah,
And it's also supposed to be 20 millimeter eye relief, which is good for
yeah.
eyeglasses for the entire range.
Yeah,
But
we're all waiting to see if the marketing holds up on that one to the actual use, since no one's got it in their hands yet. But my findings on Barlow's is that with any reasonably good quality Barlow, you're not really going to degrade much of anything in the view on the eyepiece. I'm really thinking that the popular belief that Barlows do horrible things to your views is probably based on myth more than anything else. With people in the olden days thinking, well, I got my 4mm eyepiece, let me put my 2x Barlow on it, and why is my view not nice? Must be the Barlow. Could be nothing to do with the 800 times they have on their telescope at that point. So on all the ones that I've gone through a lot of Barlows of different brandings, and the only real issue that I find between them is that you'll get a little bit more scatter with some. So if you dip out of the premium realms, then you start seeing the halo around stars, the scatter halo, a little bit more prominent around planets.
Okay.
But if you stick with the big names,
yeah,
the big names being things like Teleview, Nikon, Astrophysics, and those things, then you keep your scatter down low on those. The Explorer Scientific are nice, but they show extra scatter. And you can experiment and go with some of the oldies because you end up getting some surprises from the old technology ones every once in a while. They're cheap on the used market, but once in a while you pick up some real gems from that. But with that one, yeah, I would stick with a high quality brand name 2-inch Barlow, which would mean you'd be sitting with the Astrophysics Barlow or the big Barlow from that.
Okay.
Now,
I just found the information in the Bible here.
Okay.
In the Bible, it's on page 408. It says there is one zoom that possesses a rather unparalleled reputation, the Lacio aspheric zoom, 18 to 9 millimeter. This zoom is also designed for spotting scopes and has conversion units available for use in standard 1.25 inch and 2-inch astronomical focusers. It's gained a reputation as being a very capable zoom eyepiece, even keeping pace with some of the top tier fixed focal length eyepieces, such as Astrophysics SPLs and Pentax SMC orthos. That's pretty high praise.
yeah, I had that for a while on loan, and that one had at that time a 1.25 inch thing on it. So I put it through its planetary paces, and was very pleased with it. It did a great job. Again, not quite as good as when you go to a classic AVB ortho that's a high quality one, but much better than any of the other wide fields out there. And as for instance, when I was doing some observing a Jupiter with it versus conventional wide fields like my XWs and Pentax XWs and those things, some small barges on Jupiter, wouldn't be visible in the conventional eyepieces, and then it would show up in the this Vario zoom, and of course show up stronger in the little ABB orthos. So it was good, but like all zooms, I don't, it's either love them or hate them. I went observing for many years with just the Bader Hyperion zoom and a 2.8x Klee Barlow. So that zoom, that Barlow, and then like a 24 PAM, and those three things would serve for a whole observing session with my 10-inch Dob.
All right, now you're referring to the University Optics.
Yeah, the old Cleve Barlow.
Yeah, Terry Dickinson did a review on that years ago in Sky and Telescope, and he said because it was so short with so high a magnification factor that it did vignette a little bit.
Yeah, it will, depending on the eyepiece.
Yeah, okay.
And stuff like
And I'm going to let somebody else ask a question before I ask some more of my questions, because I don't want to monopolize this.
that. Okay.
Hey, Bill.
Thank you, Brian.
Hey,
So I'm a bit of a newbie when it comes to telescope eyepieces, and I don't quite understand what a lot of the terminology is. So could you just explain some of that to me?
Okay, well, the first thing is generally the apparent field of view. So that means when you're looking through the eyepiece, how big that portal window looks. So if it's got like a, let's use something convenient. If it's got a 90-degree apparent field of view, then that's just taking a 90-degree angle like that. So when you hold it up to your eye, it means you're seeing something that would subtend about 90 degrees if you had a 90-degree porthole there. So the standard is once an eyepiece gets past about 57 degrees in its apparent field of view, that's when the off-axis will start having more and more problems. It's harder and harder for the design to get the off-axis stars to stay as pinpoints once you get past 57 degrees. And that's where you generally then start needing to have more larger element counts. So if someone's selling you a 60-degree or 65-degree or 70-degree eyepiece, and it's got 3 elements in it, that's not enough. 5 elements is probably not enough either. You're going to need 6 and more, 6 to 9 elements to control that off axis, so the star points are there. So that's the apparent field of view. The other thing that's critical for everybody is eye relief. So eye relief is given in millimeters. It can be as much as 20 or a little bit more millimeters, and it can be all the way down to, depending on the eyepiece design, it can be 2 or 3 millimeters, really short. So what that is that's how close you have to put the lens of your eyeball from the center of the eye lens surface, the top surface. So that's not the top of the housing or the top of the eye guard. That's the center of the eye lens. And then where that gets to be more problematic is like when you look at the Teleview Naglers, all their eye lenses are concave like that. So it might be the middle of the eye lens might be 3 millimeters lower than the edge. So you lose 3 millimeters right there. So if you wear glasses, from what I understand, I don't wear glasses observing, but most people say about 15 or 16 millimeters is the minimum, and it might be rough at that. So you generally want to look at something 18 to 20 millimeters. And it's also more, even if you don't wear glasses, it's a more comfortable view when you can put your eye further away, and you tend to be able to observe a little bit longer. At least I do. And like everything, it's a trade-off. So if you have tight eye relief and you have to put your eye close to the eyepiece, then that closeness usually shields you from external light, but then it's not comfortable. You move far away at 20 millimeters, it's a lot of comfort, but then you might get more stray light interfering with keeping your exit pupil dilated in your eye. And those are the two main attributes that they advertise when they sell an eyepiece. So it's the apparent field of view and the eye relief.
Right.
Pay attention to.
Obviously, focal length is just
Yeah, focal length well
pretty self-explanatory.
Again, for the newbies, it's more when you look at focal length, you have to look at it's not only magnification, but there's this thing called exit pupil. And exit pupil is governs how bright the view is going to be. And that is basically taking the focal length of your eyepiece and divided it by the focal ratio of your telescope. Yeah, focal ratio. So if you've got an f4 telescope and you put a 40 millimeter eyepiece in it, that's 40 divided by 4, so that's 10 millimeters. A 10 millimeter exit pupil is bigger than what your iris dilates on your eye. So the most a human eye dilates is usually at maximum 8 millimeters. So you'll be losing light, which is the same as it's reducing the aperture of your telescope. But you have to be cognizant of exit pupil, because if you live in light polluted areas where your sky is kind of bright, most people can dilate to a 6 or 7 millimeter exit pupil, but you use an eyepiece that produces 6 or 7 exit pupil, 6 or 7 millimeter exit pupil in a light polluted range, then your background sky is going to be bright. Your open clusters aren't going to look very good because you've got bright stars on bright backgrounds. So if you're light polluted area, for me, I found you generally want 4 to 5 millimeters. 5 millimeters probably okay. And coincidentally, most binoculars that are made have generally a 5 millimeter exit pupil. It's a good compromise, and it shows you a relatively dark sky even at a light polluted range.
And also your pupils don't dilate as well as you become a senior, or a seasoned citizen. Like I remember when I was 35 or 40 years old, I could, use a 7 millimeter, exit pupil all the time. So like with my, F6 Daub, I could use, a 41 millimeter, panoptic, and I didn't have any problem. And now that I'm, significantly older than that, I have to keep some secrets. So now these are my, two, low power finder eyepieces. I've got the, ubiquitous GSO SuperView that comes, for free, with most of the Asian Econodobs. But my favorite, low power eyepiece is still the Teleview, 32 millimeter Plössl, which doesn't have as big an apparent field of view, but it's a pristine field. So what I'll usually do is I'll, use the big 2-incher maybe to try to find something.
Yeah.
And then to observe it a little bit more critically, I'll use the 32 Plössl, or I'll just go right for my 11 millimeter Nagler, which they don't make anymore. And because that has my really good 2 millimeter exit pupil.
Yeah. Yeah, my favorite's 2.5 for deep sky. Seems to make everything pop well for me.
So Bill, you mentioned some low-cost eyepieces, and I didn't get the name. I think it was a Japanese make.
Oh, that was Starbase. It's called Starbase Orthos and Kellners. They're sold by Takahashi America, along with the rather, the normal, more premium Takahashi gear. But if you're looking for a low-cost eyepiece just for your telescopes, a general use eyepiece, then in my estimation, the Paradigm dual EDs, which are 60 degrees, and the rebranding or different branding of that is the BST Starguiders, mainly in Europe, have that branding. So those things are far superior to a Plössl because they've got really good ergonomics with longer eye relief, and even at the short focal lengths. They're very small. They're not too big. In fact, let me go get one. Let me show you so you can see size-wise. So then
I've got one of those too.
yeah, they're not very big, so they're nice and compact. Yep, they're great.
You get a lot of bang for the buck with those.
Yeah, they got a nice.
Yeah, the price was really good.
60 degree apparent field of view, good eye relief, nice rubberized housing so your hands don't freeze in the winter when you touch it, and got that horrible undercut, but not so bad.
Yeah, they're also really good outreach and star party eyepieces.
Yeah, and they're $60. So I mean, you're going to spend, well, your 32 millimeter television Plössl is $148.
Yep, yeah, exactly.
And these are 60. So I've got a set of these because when I go traveling and take my little 80 millimeter scope with me, I'm always paranoid about, I don't want to harm my eyepieces or lose them or have them stolen. So I bring these.
Yeah, I bought one of them for conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter because I didn't really have a good planetary eyepiece.
Yeah.
Because I had the 9 millimeter that came with my telescope, but it was a pain to look through. So I got like the 5 millimeter that they had, and it was really nice view.
but some people like, well, that they want more premium brands, but they can't, afford the wide fields, so they'll get the Teleview Plossos. But for people that do that, and want that, then my recommendation is, well, you get the 32 Plosso from Teleview, you get the 25, 20, and 15, and that's it. And then you get a 2.5-inch power make from Teleview, and that'll give you, 5 millimeters, and fill up the rest when you Barlow them or Teleview or power make them. So that's a really nice combination of just 4 eyepieces and the power make, and it gets you a full length, a full range of focal lengths. List price on the mark on new, that would be $700 for that setup. Again, when you buy these, you get more field of view, more ergonomics. Not a premium name, but for much less than $700, you end up getting a better viewing experience. Just not the premium look and feel.
Bill, an eyepiece that's been around pretty much forever now that you've had an interest in is the RKE line.
Yes.
From Edmund Scientific. I'm not sure who's making them now, but basically it's a rank or a reverse Kellner eyepiece, and especially the 28 millimeter seems to have a reputation for defying the laws of physics and have something magical about it. What do you think?
Well, yes, it is. It's indeed magical. But yeah, well, first off, and after some research, I did this and went in deep into the patent paperwork that Mr. Rank submitted with those things. In the midst of that deep paperwork that they sent for the patent office, there was a correspondence between the patent office and Edmund asking what he never really specified what RKE stood for. So they wanted to know before they gave the registered trademark to that what it meant. And so Edmund said that it stands for rank, Kasparit, Erfel. Said Kasparit and Erfel were the 2 other eyepiece designers that he used to leverage the design of the RKE. And the RKE was, at the time, I think that was early 70s probably, was the first computer designed eyepiece. So it wasn't done on paper like had been done all the years before with hand with ray tracing. So it was done by a computer. But the 28 RKE is interesting because it's got pretty long eye relief, which means it's difficult to keep your stability of your eye positioning over it. But I did my own paper drawing analysis and trying to figure out how is it that the field of view, the eyepiece seems to disappear when you're looking through this eyepiece. So what you really see is you see the image floating there in space, and then your peripheral vision will get the ground around the telescope. So, and you get very, very little seeing of the edge of the eyepiece. And it's accomplished 2 ways. It was one, the housings are very thin around it, so you don't have that big perception of a big black space around the where the field stop would normally be. And the other thing is the eye relief distance from where the lens, the eye relief point to the angular distance where the edge of the housing is, happens to be right at the blind spot in the eye. So piece of the housing disappears because it's directly over top of the optic nerve.
Okay.
And then that just lends their perception that things kind of, the housing is kind of invisible when you do that. So it's really cool. The RKEs actually do work at fairly good fast focal ratios in the off axis, but in order for that to happen, it's really critical that your eye positioning is spot on, dead center over the exit pupil. If you move it just a little bit, then you'll start seeing the stars deform on the off axis. So if you can hold your head steady, then the 28 RK is pretty cool. Now, I like them. I like the bino view with the 28 RKEs and put a really strong Barlow into them to get to planetary magnifications. And what that does is a Barlow, non-power made, a Barlow will lengthen the eye relief of the eyepiece. So by up to 20%, depending on the Barlow type. So it already has long eye relief. Now lengthening it a whole bunch more. But what's really cool is then I can stand there with my bino viewers and be this far away from them and see the entire field of view, which means I don't have to move my head, just have to move my eyes down to my sketch pad and sketch what I'm seeing. I'm just moving my eyes back and forth between looking through the telescope and then looking down on my sketch pad to do sketching. So they're kind of cool in that respect too in bino viewing. Edmunds did put out a Plossl line, and their 28 Plossl had the same characteristics.
Wow.
In the same kind of housing. They had the same eye relief, all the same. The ancient Edmund 1 1/8 eyepieces, 1 1/8 inch focal length. That was before the RKE. So those were those were built on more surplus optics. Those are a true Plossl, so it's asymmetrical, and those things are phenomenal on how good their view is. I have like 3 of them that I got just because I was paranoid, and it's like, well, what if it breaks? They don't make these anymore, but you can get them pretty cheap. So it's an ornamental eyepiece. It's fun to use. I wouldn't, I don't consider using not the 28 as a routine, finder eyepiece or something, just because it is hard to hold that exit pupil nice on it. But it's definitely fun, and for $60 that you pick them up in the used market, or 50, it's something that I want to keep in the inventory. Plus, like I said, they bino view very nicely. The rest of the RK line I really like. I just reacquired the rest of them and put some chrome barrels in the bottom so that they're nice and hefty now. But those are single coated traditional technology, and I got them because, like I said, for planetary or for double star use, that I prefer single coats because they tend to show less scatter right around the star.
One of the telescopes that we have in our club that's kind of special, and one that you don't see very often, is that Ron has a Tech 200, a 8-inch fluorite refractor, which we often use with a bino viewer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if we ever, get rid of this lockdown, and if you ever, should hopefully someday have the opportunity to, stargaze with us, what would be, some of your eyepieces of choice for that kind of, premium instrument on a really good night of seeing, I would say.
Well, my eyepieces don't really change that much by telescope designs, unless the optics are very fast and it's focal ratio. But generally, for general observing with wide fields, my preference out there is I don't prefer the 82s. I had a bunch of 82s for a while, both the Televiews and the Explorer Scientifics and the Meade 5000s, all 3. And I just don't like the close eye relief after a long time. With a lot of observing, a long time observing, just don't like. It's not comfortable having the face that close to the eyepiece. And when I observe, and that maybe just that's something with me. If I go out observing, I will, on a whole evening, I'll probably only look at maybe three DSOs. That's it. I'll be spending 30, 40 minutes on one before I move on to another. So I'm sitting there for a long time looking at a single object and just examining it. So the eye relief became an issue after a couple of years with the 82s. I backed off, and it's like, nah, let me try the long eye relief 20 millimeters. And then those, like I said, they're sort of like a spa for the others. The Pentax XWs, just everything felt so nice with those. So for me, I would use the XWs or the Morpheus. I do like the hundreds. I mean, the 100 degrees. Of course, the Ethos are wonderful, but I don't like the form factor of a 100-degree eyepiece, so I don't own any. They're just too big, too heavy. I don't like my eyepiece case to outweigh my telescope. and I don't like it to significantly outcost my telescope. So if I had a set of ethos going out in the field, it's like it's just too much money. And they're too big, they're too heavy. You know, I will occasionally drop something on the realm, and if I'm dropping an $800 eyepiece, that's
Oh,
a lot
no.
different than dropping a $100 eyepiece.
What do you use for an eyepiece case?
I use a very teeny case. I have a really, really small case. I don't have any foam or anything in it. I have all the eyepieces scrunched up next to each other in the case, fitting as many as I can. And so, you know, the whole case is like, it's like 13 inches, I think. It's about that big.
Wow.
It's about that thin. And I usually pack, I'll pack like, I have a couple of those cases, little Hirsch aluminum cases. And in one set, I have my 40 XW, then I have the 20, 14, and 10 XWs. And then I have the whole set of RKEs. And I have my 3 premium planetary eyepieces. And I have three deep sky filters and 2 Barlows. And it all fits in that little thing. That's, like I said, it's just like this big, that big, that wide. Kind of nice.
Any,
So I have multiple of those pieces. I have one configured with that. The other one's configured with Morpheus eyepieces and the TAC LEs.
How about recommendations for planetary filters? I found that, you know, during, you know, last summer when, you know, Mars was prominent, I got such good views without the filters that I never
Yeah.
reached for one.
Yeah, most of the time I will, you know, opt for no filter. The only time I bring a filter in when I really want to filter is I'll bring the contrast booster, the beta contrast booster in. For that, I mean, generally across the board on all features on the planets, it does a little bit better for all the features. You know, and that filter review I did where I went into the color filters, they'll do some specific things. But overall, you know, if you're going to get, you know, a small cadre of color filters, which means you're going to get like 3 or 4 filters, you know, at 4 times 8, $32, or you spend $99 for the contrast booster and get a good general filter that keeps the coloring and the shading of the planets looking relatively natural, and get you contrast boost on everything. And so if you could share that screen with that spectral curve of the contrast booster, we can show that to everybody.
Speaking of filters, so I don't have any filters for my eyepieces. What's like a decent all-around filter for like deep sky observation that'll just
Okay.
enhance your views?
Okay, so this is the spectrum on the contrast booster. As you can see, it goes up and down all over the place. And we usually refer to these as notch filters. So they have notches in specific areas don't let those spectrum come through. So this particular arrangement, I don't know how Bader came up with it, but this seems to work very well for most all the planets in improving the contrast in the view just a little. So what all these, you know, with any planetary filter, the way I try to tell people is, first, your view of the planet has to be good without the filter. And then if you use the filter, it's going to be as if the seeing got just a little bit better. The details are all a little clearer. Sometimes you'll see a little bit more details. But in no case, if your view is bad without the filter, putting the filter in is not going to make the view better. It's, you know, bad to start, and it's going to be bad no matter what you put in front of it.
So bad stays bad, but good gets a little better.
Yeah, good gets a little better, and it's just like, oh, you went out the next night and the seeing was just a little bit better, and a little bit more of the details came through. So this filter beat out all the color filters hands down. Kept all the colors nice and natural. Slight tint change, but it's very slight. It didn't matter. And then if you go on to one of those other graphs, okay, so this is showing the spectrum that gets transmitted by various deep sky filters for nebulas. And so what you're seeing, if you look at the black bars at the top of the, above the graphs, so the Lumicron Deep Sky filter, and you look to the left, and it shows you that big long bar. So it's got the widest band of spectra that it's letting through. So it's the least aggressive filter. You know, you might use the Lumicron Deep Sky filter more like a just a general pollution filter, just to make your sky background a little bit darker and stuff. And then your next thing would be, and all these show, these top 3 filters also have the black bars to the right, which means they're letting through the red spectrum on the right. Now with all these filters, what this does is they let the red spectrum through and then the blue greens here on the left. So that means when you look at a bright star, you're going to see the red part of the star and then the blue part of the star. So the stars are going to be like sort of like half and half. They're going to have red side to them and a blue side to them. So that's just something you got to put up with these nebula filters.
Now, of the broadband filters, do you like the UHC better, or do you like the ultra black better?
Now, what I use all 4 of these filters. I've
Okay.
been experimenting with all 4 of these filters. And what I'm finding for where I live, and I live in like a Bortle 3/4 place. So my SQM reading is about 21 on any given moonless night, and which means the entire Milky Way is visible quite easily, naked eye. Not super bright, I mean, but it's there. I can see the dark lanes in it. Can usually pick out open clusters like M35, 6, 7, and 8 or naked eye. And you know, when Sagittarius is up, a lot of stuff in Sagittarius is up. The Sagittarius star cloud is obvious. See. So I'm liking the least aggressive ones. I actually like that Lumicron Deep Sky the best.
All
I
right.
might go to the extended UHC in astronomics. And these 2 also keep the stars kind of more natural looking than the others. So the more down you get, like the astronomic UHC, which is a nice tight band, you see by that small black bar on the left. But it still has all the red there to the right. Now, a lot of really seasoned deep sky observers who do that, you know, more than anything else with their larger dobs, they all tend to prefer the most aggressive filter, which is that Lumicron UHC. LUM-con, I misspelled it. UHC, the generation 3, the current generation. That one doesn't transmit any of the red spectrum to the right. That's why you don't see any black bar on the right. And it's got the narrowest spectrum. And that spectrum is so narrow. Those 2 pink bars on the graph are the hydrogen beta and the O3 lines. So basically, UHC generation 3 is sort of like is like a filter that passes both what an O3 filter passes and the hydrogen beta filter. It's very narrow between the 2. And then, of course, like an O3 filter is your most narrow. And I know a lot of people like them, but I've found that I just don't. Most of the stars vanish from the view, and all you're left with is the nebula. And when you get to those most aggressive filters with those teeniest bandwidths that they're passing, it also means you have to use a larger exit pupil. So with the Lumicron Deep Sky, you can easily go down to 1 millimeter exit pupil and still get a good view. With the Lumicron UHC generation 3, you better be staying somewhere around 2 to 3 millimeters in your exit pupil, which means your magnification is now going to be lower. And with an O3 filter, same thing. An O3 filter, which is the most aggressive, you're really going to be wanting to stay around 3 to 5 millimeters in your exit pupil. So very low magnifications. So you have to be cognizant of that. If you try to use them for higher magnifications, and you're going to be dissatisfied with them. So you have to tailor them. If you want the most aggression, if you're really in a light polluted area, and you say that as astronomic UHC, then you're not going to be able to use a 1 millimeter exit pupil and see much, because it's just going to filter's going to dim even the nebula at that point. But these name brands up here are pretty much what are considered the best for those classes. The Lumicon UHC Generation 3 would also be as good as the Teleview Nebustar, I think version 2 that's out now. So those are both equally excellent. And there's this website called Searchlight, I think it's called. And they have tested most of these filters, so that's where these graphs are from. So you can go in and plug in a filter and see what the graph looks like if you're getting an off-brand one. And when you buy the off-brand ones, which are a lot less, usually not a lot less, but somewhat less money, it's not like you're killing yourself. It just means that the bandwidth that it's passing may be a little bit wider, or might not be as a high percentage and go past up above 90 like these do. So it might just be a little bit dimmer, but all in all, if you just keep your cognizant of your exit pupils and where you're working with them, it's still going to do a good job. So like I said, for me, my preference is not even the standard UHC. I like them wider. I like the UHCE or the Lumicon Deep Sky. Again, though, I have less light treated skies. Is there another graph I had on this one? Oh yeah, this is just to show you all the different rat and filters, how they are actually transmitting. So the number 12 yellow, it blocks everything from about 500 angstroms to the left, and you can just see how they all go kind of goofy all over the place.
And people ask me about color filters for planetary. I usually tell them that if you only have one of them, to get the 80A, because that tends to have the potential to enhance pretty much all the objects. Would you concur with that?
Let's see, the 80, the 80A is the lighter of the blues, correct?
Yeah.
Now that's no, I think the 80A is the dark one. I prefer the 82.
82A.
Yeah, I prefer, because the 80A is going to definitely give you a blue tinge, a relatively strong blue tinge to everything. The 82A to me, it's not anywhere near as dramatic a blue on the colors, and to me shows the same general effect. You may feel that you're getting better contrast with the 80A, which you will be, but what you're sacrificing for that better contrast is the details along the edge boundaries of the features that you're looking at.
All right.
So for instance, if you're using it on Mars, the 82 might accentuate the Maria, the dark zones on Mars better, but if you start scrutinizing the edge details of the Maria, you'll find that the darker filter there makes them vanish from view, whereas the lighter filter lets you see them. And I just personally like all those little details that go on the edges. So which is why I prefer generally lighter colored filters.
All right.
But as a general rule for me, it would be I would get 2 color filters. I would get the number 8 yellow, light yellow, and the 82A.
Well, that Beta filter that you like, the contrast filter, I had that. Unless I'm mistaken, that's a nice, very light blue. It's a great Jupiter filter. What's the difference between that and your 82 blue?
Well, if you look on this little, if you look on this little graph that's up here on the screen, you see the 82 blue is the blue.
Yeah.
That runs here, and you can see how it runs. And if you could go back to that, the first slide. I mean, it's a whole different. It's an entirely different thing. It's transmitting the red with the beta in addition. The 82 blue wasn't. It's notching out some of these other areas where there probably happens to be, light pollution type things with, sodium lamps and whatever, in the area. So it's including the reds along with some of the blues, and that's balancing out for your eyes, so the colors tend to look a little bit more natural.
If I had to get one planetary filter, it would be the Bader. I just found it really useful.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. Okay, you can stop sharing the screen.
Okay.
Oh, question on the always famous question about fringe killing on like an achromat. I know you can't get rid of it, but I'm trying to reduce it. I messed around with a number 8 filter. That's helped a little bit, but it does give it a little bit of a yellow tinge. But I keep reading the that Beta contrast booster, and their fringe killer sounds pretty interesting. What are your thoughts on those?
I had the fringe killer, and I didn't like it because it's too much unnatural color to the objects. Interestingly, I never tried the Beta contrast booster, even though I had it with my achromat at the time. But everybody else is saying that it works just as well, almost for that. So I'm going to just try and go with what everybody else is saying. I mean, I can understand what that is, but I don't like it when these fringe filters just leave you a yellow view.
Right.
So that's always it's disturbing to me. It's too yellow. What yellow filter were you using?
Number 8.
Yeah. So
it helps.
8 is okay. 8 is okay. It's a light enough yellow. So I consider like the number 8 and the 82A as sort of like warming and cooling filters.
Yeah.
So they'll just the number 8 makes everything just a little warmer tone. Still lets all the other colors kind of come through, and the blue does just the opposite and makes it a little bit cooler. The view, and either warming or cooling things up can usually help the view. But yeah, I would say that the number 8 is probably good enough. But, the contrast booster should do better because it blocks a lot. It's more the blue realm.
One other question, if I could back up to the RK828, I actually got one as part of a scope and a couple eyepieces, and I play with it a little bit, but it's in good shape, but it needs to be cleaned.
Yeah.
What would you recommend? Because I want to disassemble it, clean it, maybe blacken the edges of the lenses and things like that. What's the best way to clean this without really disturbing the the coatings and all? Because I hear so many different ways about cleaning eyepieces.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hold on a second. Let me get one. Let me get my arcade.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because I have never taken an eyepiece apart, for the simple reason that I don't have a clean room. But I'd be very interested to see what Bill says about this.
I worked at a company, Ophir Optics. They specialized in infrared systems, things like that. But I got a couple of their cleaning kits, and they said that, it shouldn't touch the any of the coatings at all. But I'm very leery still to use these. And
well, some eyepieces are
that's it.
Are difficult to take apart, and others are very easy, like this is.
Very easy.
And big lenses, since it's long focal length, you can be rougher with it. And everybody seems to be scared about touching the glass, but I had one old Hyperion I took apart and kept apart, and just kept the elements on my desk, just rub them, play with them, go around. And over the years, as I look at the elements, it's like, gee, after all this roughhousing with them, nothing's happening. All the surfaces are still nice and smooth and everything. So you really don't have to be as gentle as a lot of people think. And it's the same thing with the main optic of your telescope with a refractor. I clean mine a couple times a year with cotton and alcohol. But
just straight alcohol.
I'm not pressing 91%.
Okay.
Higher.
It's funny. Al Nagler at Stellafane draws a big crowd when he says that he's going to clean the objective lens on his NP 127. And so, everyone's like, oh, Al Nagler is going to clean the objective, and then like about 30 people, come over to see how he's going to do it. And then he takes out Windex and paper towel. And he just goes, you guys are too uptight about this stuff.
Yeah.
And he uses, the guy used Windex with paper towel.
Yeah, well, it's just glass. As the thing that's going to harm your optic is less to do with the fluid that you're using on it, and more to do with when I take this this object that I'm going to clean it with, is there any grit or grime on it? Maybe there's a little speck of dirt on the eye lens too. That's a real piece of dirt.
Right.
Like a little piece of some very abrasive stuff. You press down on that and then wipe it across, then you're kind of scratching the lens. And that's why on mirrors, when you clean mirrors, they advocate using your fingertips. So you wet down the mirror and then you lightly put your hands on it and use your fingertips and find to see if there's any bumps. Because you're very sensitive, of course, for touch, and you can feel the things that you can't see when you do it. But this thing is just like the barrel holds the lenses in there.
Right.
So you have to unscrew it upside down. There's a couple of other eyepieces that are like this, like the 24 panoptic. If you take the barrel off, holding it right side up, everything falls right out of it.
Oh.
I'm not going to get crazy here. I'm using a Kleenex. I'm putting my finger in it upside down, and then I'm just very carefully lifting it off. Here you go. One lens, spacer, the other lens.
Wow.
And that's it. It's that simple. So you can now get your Sharpie if you want to and blacken the edges, which does help.
Don't drop it.
I've just thank you. I've never I just haven't gotten around to blackening this because I'm fine with the way they are now. And then and the trickiest part is going to be if you leave them out so dust can get on them. Getting your microcloth or your little lens brush and cleaning them off. Do not blow with your breath to clean anything. And if you don't believe that, go to some toy store or whatever and get the little 100-time microscope.
Oh God.
Yeah. If you just blow on something and then look at it on the surface with the microscope, you'll see hundreds of little droplets from your breath that are drying on the eyepiece. On the optical surface. It's just like ridiculous. So then again, I just take this, hold it with a couple fingers in there, make sure the lenses all go in the tube.
So the enzymes in your breath don't break down the debris. Is that right?
Oh no, they do.
They
A lot of times on cleaning either my main objective on my telescopes and sometimes on an eyepiece, there'll be something on the surface that's just stuck and the hole won't take it off. And every time that happens, lick my finger, hold it on top of it and wait 15 seconds, and then the enzymes and all of a sudden it just comes right off and it comes free.
So it's
that's Roland Christensen at AP.
Yeah.
You guys get all uptight and everything. He walks over with a tissue, dabs it on his tongue, and takes the fly specks off.
Well, not only that, here's what Roland does also. You get this T-shirt, made of cotton. There you go.
Oh my God.
Nice and clean. But I'm not using a lot of pressure.
Sacrilege.
I'm very light, and it's taken off. It's
sacrilege.
It's cotton. Okay. Last time I looked on a hardness scale, cotton was not harder than glass.
Oh my goodness.
I get the Kim Tech wipes off Amazon for like $6 and they work well.
Yeah. But generally what I use is I'll use alcohol and Q-tips.
Yeah.
And do that. And if I see anything left on the surface that's not coming off, a little dot or speck, which happens more on telescope objectives.
Oh my goodness.
If you're outdoors
Speaking
and,
of insanity at eyepieces, should we all be shopping at Siebert Optics?
I used to like his stuff. I don't like his stuff anymore. And after taking some of his stuff apart, I just don't like the way they're built. Because,
That's
you know,
what I was curious about, yeah.
they're not held together with retaining rings. Sometimes he'll use rubber O-rings that are holding the lenses in place by pressure, and that's it. And, you know, we all know what happens to rubber after 30 years or less, depending on how much ozone it's getting exposed to in the atmosphere and stuff. So, you know, just based on that, and you know, while he's not, you know, saying where he gets his stuff from, when I look at some of the eyepiece designs and I look at the rubber around the lenses that are usually inset in there, to me it looks an awful lot like binocular eyepiece from surplus that he's picked up and setting them in housings and stuff.
How many binoculars must die?
I mean, I had a lot of his star splitters, and the star splitters were good from 4mm to 7. Outside that range, there was a whole bunch of lateral color on the off axis, but in the 4 to 7 range, that they were pretty good. But the apparent field of views weren't quite as wide as advertised, and stuff like that. And you know, that's something you got to be, not apparent field of views, but when you go to less premium brands, you always just be a little suspect about the apparent field of view that they're telling you about, or with Barlow's in particular, whatever the magnification factor is. I had a number of Barlow's that are way off, I mean, from what they're advertised. I think the 3x GSO Barlow is 2.2x. Then I got a really old Meade 142x that was 1.4x when I measured it. So the Barlow factors can be all over the place.
Bill, any unofficial, and no one will hear it from us, comments about the now defunct University Optics, either in terms of their products or their advertising methods?
I didn't have any particular problem with them when I used them, but I mainly stuck with their with their orthos.
Yeah.
When I
There-
was
well, yeah,
and
there
their
are-
orthos back in the ortho days, the super orthos and
Yeah.
those.
I just have always felt that the demise of University Optics was because of the apochromatic refractors and the Dobbs, because most of their eyepieces were most well suited for extremely slow telescopes that were popular, you know, before the revolution and before the Dobsonian revolution.
That could have done it. I mean, and I think the guy's name was Marty, wasn't it? Who ran that?
Jan Seaford.
Oh, yeah, that's it. Yeah, Seaford. I mean, I spoke to him. His thing was he just contended that he had a hard time selling anything if it was more than $50 on the copy, and he said as the prices went up for everything, people just weren't buying it enough for him to stay in business.
Here's one of those orthoscopics that you mentioned.
Yeah.
From you know, from Little Switzerland in Japan.
And you know, you have to realize too that you know, everybody thinks it might be easy. You know, he of course branded them, his branding on them. But if I want to buy, and I call Edmunds up about this too, because I said, you know, hey guys, I'd like to get a 28 RKE, but I want you to multi-code it for me. And they said, no problem. Like anything else, you have to buy 100. So it's like, oh, okay. You know, I asked for some custom stuff from Vernon Scope with Donier. Same thing. You got to buy 100 because that's what the companies who make the lenses do it in batches of 100.
Yeah,
so,
they had a bunch of spares.
So when you think of University Optics and he's buying, you know, you had 9 focal lengths of one of the versions of the orthos, the non-HD versions. That's 900 he had to buy.
Wow.
And if he can't sell them in a year, how much money is he making enough money to eat at that point? Because he had to spend all that money up front to get all those things made. So that's the general issue with that. So Yeah, I would really like to have a multi-coded version of the RKEs, but I'm not spending that money.
Well, maybe if you get a bunch of people together that also want multi-coded RKEs.
Yeah, well, that bunch of people would have to front the money up front.
Well, if you find 99 other people.
Sounds
It's
like a job for the eyepiece forum of cloudynights.com.
Yeah.
Yes, it does.
See, Marcus has that problem with Cloudy Nights because he advertises his new telescope ideas and everybody says they're going to buy it. And then when the time comes, no one buys it.
Yeah, everybody is on Cloudy Nights, correct? Because that's a really, really good, source of information that's constantly updated.
That's where I bought my camera from.
Okay, and Cloudy Nights is a very enjoyable experience. Some of my really, really good, Cloudy Nights friends, like Bill, and like John Isaacs, and even, a lot of the collimation gurus, I all met it on, Cloudy Nights. So it's a really, really cool place. Definitely recommend getting on it if you're not already on it.
Yeah,
Especially, the
fun
new
place.
club officers, they have an astronomy club forum too.
The only problem with getting on Cloudy Nights if you're not on it is that you may end up spending more money over your lifetime.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Easily.
I found a 112 millimeter triplet just recently got put on there for like 1,100, and it's really, really tempting.
Wow.
If it hasn't sold already.
But then the other thing is, once you get an eyepiece and you like it, and then, time comes that you're going to replace it and get something else, don't always sell your eyepiece. I mean, the ones you really like, and keep them for a couple of years before you decide to sell it, because you might turn around and then start missing its whatever kind of capability it gave you, because no eyepiece does everything perfect. So it turns out, some eyepieces have this little nuanced feel where they work really well with your observing, and you end up having to repurchase them and re-get them. Like I had a full set of the old Mead Smoothie 5-element fossils, the Pseudomasiamas, and which today are impossible to get. And I'm kind of kicking myself for ever selling those, because I would love to get would love to either have like a whole set of Ultimas or the Celestron Ultimas or those old movies again.
One of us has to interject here that also applies to telescopes. Don't sell your old telescope.
Yeah, keep it around, and you just never know. It's like I bought I had a Celestron Onyx 80 millimeter f6.25, and then I replaced that with a Vixen 81S, which I love, but I didn't sell the little Celestron, and I'm glad I didn't, because it's like, well, the Celestron's $300 and the Vixen's $1,000, and when I go on vacation, it's like, no, I'll take the $300 to leave inside the hotel room and stuff like that. And and now that I'm getting some grandchildren that might get old enough to want a telescope, it's like, well, gee, they can have that Onyx as their first telescope. That'd be a nice thing.
Not a bad scope. I own one.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes you see these, and I'm kind of like thinking now in terms of grandchildren and scope. So it's like, I saw someone was selling an old Celestron 102 ED doublet.
Nice scope.
Yeah, and it was like $300, and man, I jumped on that. It's like, well, I don't need another 4-inch. I got my Takahashi, but it's like, I tested it. It's like, yep, man, this thing is superb.
Astronomers Without Borders were selling those for a little while, and went like hotcakes.
Yeah, it's it's an APO. It's an F9, and it's fully apochromatic, even though it's a doublet, and it just performs like a champ. So, mechanically, it's not the equal of my Takahashi, but image-wise, just as good. So, $300, when the grandchild gets old enough and he needs to graduate from his 80 millimeter up to 100, then I'll have a scope sitting there for him.
Quick question for you, Bill. What's your favorite target to observe?
Boy, I'm the type of person that needs variety. So, I
It's up on a clear night.
it's that's a tough one. I mean, because I like the planets when the planets are out. I love open clusters. I like double stars. I don't do a lot of double stars, but I like them. I have the same targets I always go back to all the time, which are like generally just the messier objects and some of the more showcasey stuff. But I can't say that there's really any super favorite on anything. I just like the whole aspect of just being out there and playing with all the different things that are up there to see how I can get a different view or a different take on it.
I really like looking at M37. It's one of my favorite clusters. It's up right now.
Yeah, I think, well, I probably observe more open clusters than anything else. So from that aspect, yeah. And what kind of scope do you use to observe it? What kind of aperture?
I have a 13.1 inch Dobsonian at 4.5.
Yeah. No, that's plenty good. Yeah, with open clusters, the more aperture you get, opens up more open clusters for you to look at that look pleasing.
Yeah.
But I was kind of surprised at how just small aperture differences make a really big difference in an open cluster.
Oh yeah, going from my 8-inch to that was huge.
Well, it's like not even that. It's like I have my 4-inch TSA 102, and I was playing around with the idea of replacing it, and I love it with the new stowaway from AP. Which is 92 millimeters. So going from 100 millimeter to 92 millimeter can't be much of a big deal, can it? So I got on the list. I actually got called and had to answer them whether I wanted to buy this very expensive 92 millimeter scope. And so I made a 92 millimeter mask for my TSA 102 and went out and observed all my favorite targets.
Oh my goodness.
And lo and behold, everything else was fine, but open clusters, big difference in the view between 92 millimeters and 102.
Wow.
I just couldn't believe
That's
it.
Crazy.
Yeah, I was so in shock because for planetary, it's not even worthwhile. The difference doesn't really matter. But for open clusters, just the little more authority it gave to stars, and a couple dimmer stars started coming through. It made a big difference. I was really in shock.
Whole 8 millimeters of aperture. That's crazy.
Yeah, so it's like I called up and said, no, thank you. Give it to somebody
Hardly
else.
anything. It's crazy.
Yeah, I know. Because it's not like it's an AP scope, but it's not going to be any better than the Takahashi as far as the optical figure.
One more question about the Beta zoom. I've been tempted to get one of those, the Hyperions. I think they're a little over $200 if I remember correctly. What's that?
The Hyperion zoom?
Yeah. How does that compare to some of the other ones? Because I want something just for an acromat, just like real quick, viewing session, just to look at a bunch of things kind of quickly. So that works out well. I have an Orion, but it's an L. It's cheap. It really doesn't, And I know the quality compared to like a dedicated.
Which Orion do you have? The like the 721s or the 8?
The 721 or 724. I think it was.
Oh yeah, no, that's okay. Yeah, the 721s are the ones with the smaller apparent field of view.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean it's going to be nicer because it's 68 degrees or 70 degrees at the 8 millimeter setting on the Hyperion. But the problem then becomes when you go down 24 millimeters, it's like 45 degrees. And so that means that when you go from 24 millimeter to 16 millimeter, maybe even a little less than 16 millimeter, your obviously your focal length is changing, but your true field of view is not changing. So it's staying the same.
Yeah,
And so that's true of all zooms where the apparent field of view changes
yeah,
as you zoom. And you know, you know, what made that Leica ASPH zoom at least better is because it opened up much wider at the wide end. So it meant at its constricted end, it was not so narrow. So it was nice. But you know, I'm kind of just waiting to see what this APM constant apparent field of view.
Yeah, Kevin, you should really wait and see what the reviews come out on the Super Zoom, because
Yeah.
that's not going to be, you know, anywhere near like as expensive as the Leica Zoom. I think they said it was going to be like maybe $150,
Yeah,
you know,
it's cheap,
as opposed to 900.
yeah. Yes,
But
I would wait for that. It doesn't have as big a zoom range, but you know, do you really need to go down to 24 millimeter? I mean,
right, exactly, yeah.
you know, the way I look at those zooms is even when I had the Hyperion zoom, I still had my 24 pan,
Yeah,
even though they were both 24, because this one's at 68 degrees, the other's at 40. It's like,
Yeah.
no, I can't use it for, you know, scanning or trying to
Right.
find something. I still need that. So
the 40 would
nice.
look
It's nice
a
as
little
far as I'm
strong.
concerned that this new Marcus one is coming out with, is it 15 to 9 to 16 or something like that?
What the new APM zoom's
Yeah.
going to be 7 to 15
7 to 15.
with 20 millimeter eye relief
Yeah.
the whole way across and a 70-degree
So
apparent field of view the
Wow.
whole way across. So if the optics are good, you know, they're gonna sell a lot of those.
yeah, for
and
sure.
so it's going to be if it has a reasonable off axis, not even a perfect one, just has a reasonable one, and the apparent field of view stays fixed like it's supposed to, and it's near parfocal as long as it doesn't go way too off when it's focusing between the two, then you put your 24 ES68 for your maximum true field of view, 1¼ inch, and then you pop that zoom in. And then when you need to go to high power, you get the 2.5x power mate, put that under it.
Yeah.
And you get to like 3.5 millimeter down to 7 or something, 7.2. I think it was.
Well, another interesting, you know, idea would be to get the super zoom from APM and then get a 3 to 6 millimeter Nagler zoom, you know, for a higher power.
I'd rather
What
get
do you think of the Nagler zooms?
didn't like them.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, I had both. I had the 3 to 6 twice, and I had the 2 to 4. And to me, they were. I don't know. It's you know, well, first of all, it's only 50 degrees.
Yeah.
So you know, that small of a field of view at that high of a magnification, I'm going to want a better performing eyepiece, like you know, a premium ABB or something. And that's where it became problematic for me with them. It's like it's 10 millimeter eye relief. It's still kind of short.
Yeah.
Because the eyepiece is so small and diminutive, you really have to have it locked in the focuser tight if you're going to work the zoom with one hand. So it, you know, if it slips in the focuser, then it's not zooming.
I've always kind of thought of my 11 millimeter Nagler as a zoom in and of itself, in that it has the magnification of an 11 millimeter piece, but it shows me the same amount of sky that you would see with a 20 millimeter Plossl.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, so if you get a Nagler or two, then you don't have to get a lot of eyepieces that might give you a little magnification, because the Nagler will show you more sky.
Yeah. Or, you
So
know,
I usually go right from low power, you know, to my 11 millimeter Nagler, even though I have, you know, a couple of eyepieces in between. I seldom use them.
yeah.
I have one more question for you really quick.
Uh-huh.
A while back, not that long ago, actually, I got an Explore Scientific 20, the 100 degree. And everyone was telling me what a great eyepiece it was. And I thought, yeah, it's pretty good. But I'm getting a little dissatisfied with it. What do you think of those?
What are you getting dissatisfied about?
Just I think that must be John Hobbs.
Okay.
Just the clarity, the clarity to the edge of the field of view, the brightness of the stars. It seems like it's got too much glass for its own good. I'm not sure.
Well, I know I don't like the Ethos 21 either. I sat out there and with a what do you call it, a C925 that had a 21 millimeter Ethos in it, and I put my 40XW in it and said, you keep the Ethos on the side. It's like I want to observe with the 40. It's a much nicer view.
Wow.
Wow.
Just overall. And it's also not $1,000, and it's not 2 tons in weight.
Yeah.
And it had a little bit more true field of view. When you're working with an F10 instrument like the C9, it's like the X pupil was perfect.
Well, there goes my next question. I was going to ask if I should replace it with the Ethos. I guess not.
I don't, if you're getting dissatisfied now is well, the Explorers don't have quite as good an off axis as the Ethos, but is that going to be enough to satisfy? If it's just a little bit better.
Yeah.
I'd say probably the 21 Ethos is probably the worst one of the line. As far as the off axis and everything, it seems like that seems to be true for a lot of the television ones. That the very bottom one is often the worst one, like the 17.3 millimeter Delos is nowhere near as nice in the off axis as any of the other Delos.
Yeah, I got an 8, and I actually like it a lot.
Yeah. No, the other ones are all pretty good, as long as you don't mind that big eyepiece.
Well, the 8 isn't too big compared to the 2-inch eyepieces. So,
Mike, what in your scope, Mike? What does that 8 give you?
well, in the scope it's in, it's 1300. So whatever that is, 4 times. Yeah. 50, 60. Right off the top of my head.
Yeah, we got to try that one out as soon as we can actually stargaze in person, which I hope will be sooner rather than later. Any other questions for our?
One more. I had my eye on an eyepiece that's on Craigslist. It just popped up. I think it was last week. It's a William Optics Swan 40 millimeter. Are you familiar with those? Like, what do you think of those? I figured it'd be kind of a nice, scan the sky type eyepiece.
I'm not too familiar with it off the top, but I can't imagine that that's any different from the GSOs.
Yeah. Well,
Or the
see, the
super views or
Swans
whatever.
are 70-degree eyepieces, and they would definitely be better than, something like, the GSO Super View. I'm just wondering how it would compare to that APM, 30 ultra flat field that gets really good reviews. We should ask on cloudy nights to see if anybody has compared them head to head, and that would be worthwhile.
Let me just.
After seeing how you clean eyepieces and your desire for double coatings on the other ones, I look forward to when we can have you back with a spray can.
Okay, hold on, wait. I'm looking at this. Okay, the William Optics Swan is a 42 degree or a 72 degree eyepiece with. It's only got 5 elements and 3 groups. It's not going to be any better than.
It's not going to be that great.
Yep, not at all. Then. No.
If it was a 6 element one, then that means it would have been the equivalent of the Paragon. which would have been a good eyepiece,
Yeah,
or the old AT Titan 2.
that's why it's still on there then.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
If you can, find a Paragon, a TMB Paragon in 40 millimeter, or the,
Ron, do you still have your TMB Paragon 40?
Yep.
All right. Well, we should.
don't get rid of it.
Yeah. Don't get. Yeah.
That,
Definitely.
actually, that's
One
a
of that.
really nice eyepiece.
Yeah, it's light and it works really well. Off axis, just has a little problem right near the field stop, but that's no big deal. And the same thing, and the same optical formula was used by the Astrotech Titan 2 EDs. So it's
Yeah,
the same
that
thing.
actually, I did have an issue with that, and Thomas Back fixed it personally for me.
Yeah.
I have a numbered eyepiece.
But of that line, the 30 and the 35 were nowhere near as well corrected as the 40.
Yeah, I had a 30 and I didn't really care for it.
Yeah, and the 35 was even worse.
Yeah, really? Yeah.
I tell you, Thomas Back was such a great guy.
He was.
Got to say it. He was a great guy.
Yeah, I personally got my TMB orthos from him.
Which TMB orthos? Oh, you mean the planetaries?
TMB
Yeah,
planetaries.
planetary,
Yeah.
super planetary eyepieces. Yeah.
Yeah, he was great.
Bill, if we encounter used Radians on the market, would they be worthwhile to pick up, or should we leave them alone?
I had all the Radians, and they were my planetary eyepiece for a while. And when I left the Radians and that's when I think I moved on to the XWs after that. And it's like that's when my eyes thanked me so much when I did that, because it turned out that the Radians have a very hard exit pupil to hold well, causing a lot of eye strain that I didn't realize until I sold them. And after I sold them, it's like, wow, my eyes feel so nice.
Well, that's why they came with that thing that you put in underneath.
Yeah, they had the
other
pupil
eye cup
guide,
to help you
but
hold
the other thing
pupil.
about the Radians is that they also had a ton of lateral color. So if you put a bright star off towards the far off axis, it's a little rainbow out on the side, and I didn't enjoy that. So I didn't enjoy that. I didn't enjoy how difficult they were on the eye feeling for my eye, and maintaining position without blackouts. And then the other thing was that InstaJust thing just drove me crazy, because it would never stay put. I set it up there, and then if I went to look at the eyepiece and my head hit the eyepiece too hard, then down went the InstaJust and stuff. So I just hated that little mechanism.
And the Type 4 Naglers had the same kind of InstaJust too.
Yeah, so
and that wasn't great either.
Yeah, I was thinking about getting one until I found that it had the InstaJust, and it's like, no, thank you. And and the new eye guard on the on like the Delights and the Delos, much improved with the the unscrew and set and screw. But still, after working with them for a while, I still prefer like the very gentle unscrew of like the XWs. I still, it's just less effort than trying to unlock and move that thing and relock it and stuff. So
right,
yeah, and all that's just personal stuff. It's like, that's why I tell people that eyepieces are like gloves. They're like clothing. It's like some stuff fits for you and other stuff doesn't. It's not universal. Just because it fits for you doesn't mean it's going to fit for everybody, because it's all a taste thing, and all these little ergonomic factors between the eye relief and the eye positioning and all that stuff is all just personal things. Yeah, I like those Pentax. I had the 8.5 and the 12. I used them for a lot of years.
Yeah, this is one of my favorites. it is, it's knockout fantastic
Yeah.
for the planets. In my 8-inch f6 stop, it gives me 140x, 280x with a 2x Barlow. I've got one of the old Teleview 1.8x Barlows, and it's unstoppable on the planets. I got some amazing Mars views with this little guy last summer, barlowed and unbarlowed. And it has, not an Insta-Just, but it has a 3-way flick. And this is one of my favorites. With this one and the 11 millimeter Nagler and the 32, Plössl. This is an old 32 Plössl without the fancy logo on it. But these are the 3 eyepieces that I use, I would say probably 90% of the time. This one, the 11 millimeter Nagler, most of the time. And then I have, in the Explorer Scientific 6.7, because at that time it was about a third of the price of the 7 millimeter Nagler, and it was just that close.
Yeah.
And so I've been pretty, happy with these, and they're all, pretty lightweight and compact and don't cause a whole lot of balancing problems. And we've had some good luck with those, and we've also had, some good success taking, imaging of the moon, through the cell phone, which is one of my girlfriend's, favorite things to do when we're out at the, at the site. And it's been fun. Yeah.
Yeah, once you can get a set of eyepieces that you're happy with, it really changes your observing world.
Yeah, and I don't have that many. I've only got 7, all together, because I'm going for quality for me over quantity. And any other questions? I guess we should probably think about wrapping this up so Bill can, get back to his civilian life here. Bill,
I got a telescope outside that's cooling down.
Oh, good. Bill, I want you to let me know whether you want a hooded or a hoodless sweatshirt, whether you want a light color or dark color, and what size, and, shoot me a text, with that. Because what we've been doing is, this is an official North Shore Amateur Astronomy Club honorary member sweatshirt for you to wear, proudly. And, who knows, at a star party, you might run into someone else who spoke for us who's wearing one.
Which North Shore are you on?
North Shore of Boston.
Ah, okay.
Beantown.
It's been a long time since I've been up that way.
We'll need an address too to send it to. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I want an address to send it to, and just shoot me a text with that, and we will get that out to you. And
what's your temperature out there now?
It's going to be in the 50s next week. So
no, but I mean right now.
We don't want to talk about that.
No.
Oh, I think it's 24 degrees here.
Wow.
27 in Stoneham right now.
And breezy.
It's going down to 24. It's only 30. It's 34 now, so it's plenty warm for me to go outside.
Yeah,
Which scope do you have cooling down? Is it the reflector or?
Yeah, I got the 10-inch because I'm going to be looking at some planetary nebula.
Dynamite.
25 right now. It's going to be 17 degrees later tonight.
Ouch.
No mosquitoes.
No.
Yeah, that's right.
No mosquitoes.
Nice wind chill tonight. It's 27, but it feels like 16 here.
Are you coming out with a new edition of the book?
I don't know yet. I'm still playing with the idea, but I haven't committed myself one way or another.
All right. Well,
and that's because I don't want to just add more pages on here's new eyepieces. and take out the old ones that have gotten
Well,
discontinued.
Remember for the acknowledgement page that it's Brian with a Y.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'm trying to figure out if there's something else I can change in the book that's going to be significant that people might like. You know, other than just adding the extra lines that come out.
Well, the original version doesn't have anything about the Morpheuses in them because they weren't out then. So that's a big thing.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of eyepieces that can be added to the thing that I'm looking to somehow like maybe add a new chapter on something that would be intriguing. But haven't figured that out yet.
Okay.
Unless I put a bunch of pictures in there of me cleaning eyepieces with my T-shirt.
Well, no, you could have a link to a YouTube video.
First spitting on it, and then using my T-shirt to wipe it off.
God. All right, so we've asked you a lot of questions. Do you have any questions for us?
What's the range of ages for your members?
Oh, that's a good question. Who's the youngest person on tonight?
Ryan would have been, but he left.
Yeah.
And what age was that? 40s?
No, he's a youngster.
Oh, okay.
A youngster. He took a 13.1-inch mirror from an old Coulter Daub, and he put it into a beautiful structure that was based on Dennis Steele's design at Daub stuff, and it's a gorgeous telescope.
Hey. And how many females do you have?
Well, we have an at-large board member now who was
Yeah.
just elected tonight, and we're always hoping to get more. Actually, I have to be careful what I say about that in today's society.
As far as age goes, though, the club was actually aging out like a lot of them are. And I really think that we've turned the corner on that. Thanks a lot to the new people who've come on board in the last year.
Yeah, we actually used to have a young astronomers program where we used to give out 6-inch Daubs, to, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who did an essay contest, and it was worth it because some of those essays were just so funny.
Yeah.
Can't do that anymore though, because all, most of, our income is, donations, for doing outreach and star parties.
Yeah.
And we haven't been able to do that in about a year now. And we're so grateful, to people like you, who have, joined us, so that we can, continue to provide our members with, informative and, worthwhile experience during this shutdown. You'll never know how much we appreciate you, joining us tonight and, sharing your, time and expertise with us.
You're welcome. And yeah, so somehow we got to figure out how to get more young people into the hobby, but I think we got to change the hobby. I mean, we're all used to manual stuff like telescopes made with glass, and going out there by yourself and looking at things. And kids are really all more social media oriented, and human connection oriented. So doing a solitary activity is not something that appeals to them, and doing something that they can't integrate their phone with.
Wait until they get married. They'll want the solitary time.
Exactly.
One of our Gloucester pals had a idea for a T-shirt. It would say "Amateur Astronomers, Social Distancing since 1609."
Oh, that would be a great T-shirt. Oh, that would be fantastic. I think you guys know. I think your new leadership needs to change your T-shirts.
Well, actually, this is the classic T-shirt, and Mike is wearing the the new style T-shirt. See, I'm old school, so I wear the classic T-shirt.
And Michael, I hope you recorded this because there was so much said that I'd like to go back and review it.
Oh,
It's going to
definitely.
be recorded. It's going to be available on Facebook and on Bill Waller's and my science journal, thegalacticinquirer.net. Yes.
Good.
Oh, .net, I thought it was .net. Okay, fine.
Yeah,
It's
you
also
know,
.org. I tried to swoop up as much stuff as I could.
Right.
I have to echo what Brian said about his favorite go-to eyepieces. You recognize this one, Brian? Whoops.
Yeah, that's the 11 millimeter Nagler is
I
the
bought this
eyepiece
from him
that's so
used.
nice.
Yeah.
It
Is there
twice.
something wrong with it? You sold it to me?
No, I just
wait, I think I caught him cleaning that with his thumb and spit.
no. What happened
This is sandpaper.
is that I thought I was going to go for a 12 millimeter Nagler Type 4 because of the eye relief, but I realized that it just wasn't a good fit for my telescope and that I couldn't stand the Insta-Just, so I wound up buying another one.
Oh, but there's something even worse. That dual skirt.
Yeah.
That thing is horrible if you use it in 1.25 inch, but you gotta twist it, make sure it goes down over the set screw.
Yeah,
and just,
I know, it was
what a
horrible.
pain that thing was.
Yeah, and I've got a really good moonlight focuser on my scope too, and it was still, just ridiculous
Yeah.
to try to use that. You needed like an extension tube, and it was just became so much of a hassle that I wound up, getting another 11 millimeter
Yeah.
Nagler. But I
And
guess
while the 12T4 has more eye relief, it's got a very strongly concave lens. So when I had it, just to see all the apparent field of view, I still had to dip my eye really close into it.
yeah, it was kind of deceptive that they
Yeah.
marketed as okay for eyeglasses. You see, with my eyes, I don't need corrective lenses for any exit pupil less than 2 millimeters. So this gives me a little less than 2 millimeters. So it's perfect because I don't need my eyeglasses to to see the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so this is my by far my number one most frequently used eyepiece. The Pentax number 2. And then, the low power, finder eyepiece is number 3. Here's something interesting. This is a 35-year-old University Optics 16 millimeter Koenig, which is not great in my f6 and my f7 telescope, okay? But when I use this with my old 1.8x Teleview Barlow, it becomes a 9 millimeter with greatly improved edge performance. And one of my observing buddies used to have a Type 1, an original 9 millimeter Nagler. And we couldn't tell very much difference between this, University Koenig. It was then a $50 eyepiece at the time, with the 1.8x Barlow, which is a really good Barlow, and the Teleview Nagler. It was pretty much the same. We were looking at then I had a 10-inch Dob, a Coulter. We were looking at M13, and the views were, as identical as we could see. So if you have an old style, eyepiece that has natively a lousy edge performance, you can always stick it in a Barlow. And the Barlow gives you much better edge performance because instead of an f6, it becomes an f12. And also you get a little bit more eye relief too. So Barlows can really help, more than we, would realize.
Definitely be your friends.
All right. Anything else? Maybe we should let Bill go so that he can start stargazing and we can live vicariously through him.
It's lights out here in a couple of minutes here. So.
Yeah, but definitely, Bill, shoot me
I will.
text with the information. We're going to get you the sweatshirt and then you're always welcome to anything. If you ever get out here, you let us know. We're going to treat you to dinner at our favorite Chinese restaurant.
Going up to Boston for a Chinese restaurant.
Don't have to.
This one's actually in North Andover, but it's better than the ones in Boston because it's an all-you-can-eat buffet and it's quality and quantity. See, traditionally, we treat, the speakers, to this wonderful dinner before the meeting. I still wish we could do that,
Yeah, it'll get back to normal. Might take another year, but I think
It's insight. It's insight.
I see, I'm a doctor, so I already had both my shots. And my girlfriend's a nurse, so she had both of her shots too. So.
And how did the second shot affect you? Pfizer?
Yep.
Did you have any?
Just a sore arm for a little while, and that was about it.
Was it? Great.
Yeah.
Yep, getting mine on Monday.
All right, second shot?
First one.
First one?
I had
You know,
my,
when I went, it reminded me of voting. They had it all set up just like voting. You have to go to tables with your initial and register, and then go someplace else, and then they finally gave you your shot.
Well, I have to go to the Elks Club. I think they swear you in and try to shoot you. I'm not sure.
They have cheap beers.
That's funny.
All right, guys, what do you say we wrap this up?
All right, Bill, thank
Okay,
you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you very much, Bill. That was excellent.
Thank you, Bill.
Any,
Thank you very
anytime
much.
anybody wants to email me, my email is always open for anybody to send me a message about whatever.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
Terrific.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
right.
Thanks for coming.
Hi, everyone.
All right,
guys.
Cloudy nights, everybody. All right, good night.
Good to see you all.
Ciao.